You get the wiggles out?
Yeah, getting the wiggles out. And we're back for real this time because this is episode 2 of our edition of Form Check Friday.
And we promise we're not trying to rip off Bryce and Dylan.
We are kind of trying to rip off Bryce and Dylan because the format worked for them, and apparently it worked well enough for us last week that we are giving this another try. Still not entirely sure if we're committed to 100% weekly, so make sure to watch this and like it and do all that kind of stuff so that we know that we should keep doing this. But once again, hopping inside of Team Activated to check out a thread I posted last night asking for videos to be reviewed in this video that you are now watching on your video watching device. And if you guys aren't familiar with Team Activated, this thread is not the only time that we run form checks because it is a place where lifters can post their training, post their programming, post any questions that they have, and get help directly from us every single day. And in addition to the community, we also have the classroom side of things, which is a place where I am posting a bunch of educational content in order to help you better understand conjugate, better understand biomechanics, better understand how to get more jacked. Plus, we also have our deep dive live lectures, which are happening every single week right now. These are hour-long format, trying to make it almost feel like a university lecture to help you become a better lifter. So hit the link below, join the team for less than $1 a day. I can help you get your shit together. And without further ado, let's get into this thread to take a look at the videos that are going to be inside this video.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is the first time we've seen any of these videos. So you're watching us review them live.
We should make people at home play a drinking game where they have to drink every time I say video.
See, the thing is, I'm not sure what another way to say video is.
Moving picture. Anyways, yeah, we haven't seen any of these yet. And I think the reason that I like doing this with the team versus just random submissions is that because I'm a little bit familiar with most people in here, like some of them are new, so I'm not super familiar yet, but a lot of them, I know what's going on. I know what we're looking for. I know what we're trying to accomplish. So that can make it a little bit easier to understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. And I'm not just kind of randomly tossing advice out of the dark. I'm trying to give advice based on context because I think that the context is very important when we're trying to figure out what is going on with a lift. So let's get into her with Jason's deadlift.
Yes. 520 by 2. There's something off with the wedge. What do you think?
So I know with, when he was posting, he hasn't posted in a while. So I haven't seen a lot from, around Christmas till now. So I don't know what's gone on between then. But I know with what he was struggling with was kind of feeling like he took a little bit of time off sumo, kind of feeling like his legs were a little bit closed off. He's having trouble to get in close to the bar. And I think that does look mostly resolved. But start position is still a little bit weird. And I think what might be happening is, number one, his shins are super vertical, just straight up and down behind the bar. And number two, it almost looks like he's running out of a little bit of hip range necessary to get the hips closer with his current leg position. So what I'd kind of be thinking about as I accidentally turn the volume on is I might want to try a little bit narrower of a stance, the same amount of knee out shove, but with that little bit narrower stance, see if we could try to nudge the knees a little bit more over the bar. So we kind of have the same femur position, but then get the hips a little bit closer. And I think that could let him get into a better start position and then let him have a better time at actually using the quads versus kind of just getting hung up with bent knees at the top.
Yeah, I was just going to say, having a little bit more quad should help him with that lockout a little bit more because right now he has a bit of soft knee.
That we really don't want to see because pulling a deadlift to the air and then getting called on soft knees and lockout is probably the worst feeling you could ever have in a powerlifting meet, especially if it's on your third. So I'd really just be thinking okay, maybe a little bit narrower, a little bit more knee over the bar, and then really freaking try to leg press that thing off the floor, flex the quads hard, and blast your lockout with those knees closed. And then lastly to touch on,
a little bit of elbow bend.
Yeah, and this is something that he has had trouble with before. And I know before we were kind of working on maybe getting him a little bit wider so he didn't get hung up on his rib cage. And I'm kind of wondering a little bit if this is kind of just due to how bunched up he is through the mid-range. And I'm almost wondering if
getting around himself.
Number one, I think I want to really just emphasize trying to flex the triceps freaking hard and hanging long. And with him pulling hook grip, I might even be thinking about trying to ulnar deviate to kind of like push his elbow through and kind of like let the thumb hang lower, so he's less likely to kind of like try to row it into him. But I do think that a lot of this, the band might clean up a little bit if we did kind of clean up the rest of the positioning stuff.
Agreed.
So let's take a look at Aaron's. He already posted this in the main thread, so I already know.
You've seen this. I haven't.
Yeah, I've already seen this. Miana hasn't cheated. But 515.
And he said he changed his stance for this.
Yep. And
it's a bit hitchy.
Yeah, and in the main thread, I was kind of a little bit of a dick about this because this is like, he's new here, so this is the second post, so he's, he's catching some flack early. But the first time he posted in the team, he posted about going off this program to test a max single deadlift. And, last week I kind of told him like, hey, we probably shouldn't be going off program too much. And then he goes and tests another max single deadlift that is 10 pounds heavier than last week, but it's probably a little bit shittier. And I think with this degree of like soft knee again at the top, I don't think this would get white lights in most meets. And kind of something I was talking about Jason's is like, if we're building a habit where we're just kind of ramping a deadlift to soft knees versus, actually training and building, I really don't want to see this turn into a third attempt pull where we do get soft knees. So that's why I kind of want to be a dick and be like, hey, let's stop going off plan, stop, taking PRs that would, count in the gym but wouldn't count on the platform. Because if we can get better training in versus just going up to a max, we're going to be able to make sure that when it comes time to take a real max on the platform, we're actually in a position to pull well and make sure that we do get white lights on that third.
Yeah. And one thing that I would like say about testing maxes off program is that as much fun as they can be, it's so easy to run into a wall really quickly instead of actually building. So you're not going to be able to hit a PR week after week after week after week after week. You have to build to it. So, he's kind of sacrificing getting to maybe like a 600-pound pull sooner by testing his maxes
around
now.
500. And like, I'm totally fine with singles in training as long as the singles are part of that building progression. Like if a guy's pulling conjugate, that's going to mean we might want to change variation of the single week to week to week to allow us to build momentum. If a guy is just kind of doing like the buy one at 8 and then work sets based off of that 8 RP indicator, then we're doing an 8 RP set. So we're not going to a true max. It's not easy, but it's also not balls out hard. And again, we can still build momentum with that strategy. But if we are hitting maxes that are getting sloppy week after week after week, it can be hard to long-term make progress, and guys end up running into walls sooner than later with that. So that's a habit that I want to just bite in the ass right away. Yeah. Again, I'm being a dick because I want him to do well.
Exactly.
Like the reason I want to say like, let's change this shit. Let's change those habits. Let's get in the habit of building rather than testing. Is people in here, I don't want to be like, yay, good job. I want to be like, let's be freaking good long-term.
Yeah.
And, sure, this is the biggest he's ever pulled. That is cool.
Yeah.
But it will be so much freaking cooler if he allows himself to build momentum and then pulls 550 on the platform 6 months down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't give a shit about this. I give a shit about making a better long-term. So that's why.
To go back to his deadlift though, what do you think that he could be doing to see less of a hit?
Yes. So with the knee rebend, usually what's happening is I want to equate the knee rebend to hamstrings not quite being there. And the reason I want to equate it to hamstrings not quite being there is if we're thinking about what's happening as those knees get shoved into the bar, is that it's allowing the hips to get further to extension without the hamstrings actually contracting against load. Because as the knees rebend, the hamstrings are getting a little bit shorter, and then we're able to shove our hips through a little bit, and then we can kind of ride the quads up to finish. So even though it is a knee rebend and the quads are kind of yielding, it's letting the hamstrings get to a more advantageous position. So the hamstrings have to work less hard.
Yeah.
And what I told him last week is jam out on some GHRs, jam out on some Nordics, jam out on some stiff legs where we're not allowing the knee rebend to happen, and it should clean up. And this is something that, I used to have this problem, so I've cleaned it up for myself. I've cleaned it up for a bunch of people, and it really is as easy as just making hamstrings strong as shit so we can actually stay over the bar versus having to lean back and getting around it.
And like one thing I would think about too is like, I think a lot of people who are kind of maybe at like a beginner intermediate level of powerlifting, when they deadlift, they like over lean back
Yes.
And that's like part of why you see that extra knee bend. It's like you want to get used to like almost being like straight like a soldier at the top.
All we need is straight up and down. We don't need further back than straight up and down. So straight up and down is the goal.
Yes.
Anyways, on to Adrian.
And Adrian always comments on our YouTube videos. So hi, Adrian.
Yeah. Thank you for helping to drive the algorithm. So last year's strength cycle resulted with a 240 kilo squat.
Trying to do the mental math on that. Like, okay, yeah. 550-ish? 550?
Is it 550-ish?
I don't know.
I'm so bad at kilos. I know what like the main kilo numbers are. Like I know 225 is 496. I know 235 is 518. So 240 is 11 pounds more than 518. So 529.
529. Yeah. Wow.
Beat me at his calculator with my stupid explained mental math.
It was quicker for you to do that than for me to type
it was
in my
quicker inside my head. I think like, the problem I have with talking to a camera so many times is like my brain works at like this speed, but my mouth works at like this speed, so that it kind of turns into this convoluted mess all the time.
Doesn't that usually happen to people with autism?
Yeah. Anywho, 240 kilo squat, and knowing that this was last year's. What?
Oh, is this last year's? Okay, yeah, sorry. Last year's squat attempt, sorry.
Where we pointed at?
His head. Look at the forward head.
Oh, yeah.
That was the first thing I noticed on the walkout.
I thought you were pointing out the man bun.
No, man buns are cool. You used to have one.
And you're just like excited about it.
No, look at how forward his head is.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it.
Pointing to the
yes, because the camera is like has a finger sensor that I wish.
Yeah, what do you think about that head posture?
I don't love it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of like one of those things where it's like I'm making a lot of assumptions based on where other stuff is going. But what I'm really paying attention to is I'm trying to like watch the belt, watch the femurs, watch the rib cage. Because it looks like at the initiation, right as it initiates, you can kind of see the belt change angles. And it's kind of like flicking back just a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? You see that little bit of flick back, and there's a little bit of tuck under, and then he kind of goes right back to that flick and then has to chug through that mid-range. So I think a lot of this is going to be like just pure foundational bracing strategy work to learn how to maintain better position through a squat, because the problem if we're kind of like doing that flick back and then tuck and then reflick is I don't give a shit about the butt wing. I don't give a shit about the butt wing from like a safety back injury perspective. I give the shit about the butt wing from a pure force transfer to the barbell, because if we have, pelvis barbell and we have a bunch of squirmy shit in the middle, it's going to be like trying to like, if I wanted to, I guess I shouldn't say this. If Miana wanted to hit me with something, to cause me injury, she wouldn't hit me with a pool noodle. She'd hit me with a fucking baseball bat. You want a baseball bat between you and the barbell so you can transfer force the most effectively. Should I edit that out? Was that too much?
No, I think that's fine. Actually, I feel like we should be clear that I am not hitting you with anything. But yeah, if you want to hit anything with something, it wouldn't, I don't know, maybe I would want to hit someone with the pool noodle, but
the pool noodle's a fun way to hit someone.
Yeah, exactly.
If we're trying to squat a lot, we don't want a pool noodle between our hips and the barbell.
Yes, I think so. At some point you're making.
I want to try to see if we can, basically what I've been trying to cue in here is thinking about, instead of just like shooting the hips back, trying to create tension between the rib cage and the pelvis on the front side to draw those together and then use that tension to guide us into the hinge. And what I want to think about if I'm like watching a squat from the side is I don't want to see like the hips traveling at a different rate than the rib cage. I want to see it moving all as one unit as we get in that hinge and moving all as one unit up to the top. If we have that discrepancy from top to bottom, then it is a matter of like, okay, we either need to get better at learning how to brace, or we need to get stronger through the abdominals so we can support more brace underneath the weight that we're doing, because that will let the legs and the hips and everything work more efficiently at moving that bar.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Getting that?
Nope. I can add that he already included that it was 530 pounds in there.
He's given himself an extra pound. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
529. Come on, man.
But it did have a question mark. So It's okay.
And I think the other kind of things I can kind of note is I'm not sure how much of this is like the brace leading to it, but let me go full screen. You can see a little better.
Ooh, way better.
But you got to see the knees are kind of getting supported back, and he's kind of, that might just because the brace is going and he's fighting for leverage, but that also might be a sign that we do need to like hammer on quads hard to get them up to snuff so that he can do better. And do you remember what we were saying about his strength discrepancy on his sumos last week?
No, I don't remember. What
you don't remember? Well, I had him try to do like a glute intent belt squat. Had him try to do some sumo Dimmel deadlifts.
Yes. Okay.
And another thing that I'm thinking as well is like with that pelvis flicking back, I do still think it is a brace thing, but sometimes if the pelvis is flicking back into kind of more anterior tilt, that's going to mean that there's going to be more relative hip flexion for the femur position. And usually what that means is that if we do lat glutes, if we kind of let that pelvis dump forward, then the adductor magnus can get a little bit of leverage gain. So again, I think it's probably going to be like a better brace, stronger brace, better quads, stronger quads, better butt cheeks, stronger butt cheeks, and he should get a better squat. Sick. So on to freaks. Little high bar PR. He is a much better front squatter than he is a back squatter. Feels weak out of the bottom doing back squats, and I actually don't. I've seen him squat, I've seen him deadlift, I've seen him front squat. I don't think I've seen a high bar from him.
I want to know. I haven't seen this yet. Is he built similar to me? Because I am also like.
Well, wait till he walks in screen.
Okay, because I don't want to say that I'm a better front squatter than back squatter, but he is not built like me.
I think his limbs, like his arm, is longer than your entire body.
Oh yeah, okay.
So definitely not the build. But checking things out, maybe a little herky-jerky on the pick, a little bit stutter-steppy on the steps out. And he is a strong man, so I'm not going to be too upset about the depth standard.
Don't go all the way back. Yeah, I just want to see him go into the hole. She's so. I'm just trying to see if he's in his quads enough coming down. Because he kind of kicks his butt back on the way out.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yep. And I think that, like, if I'm going to think about, like, I wish I had a video of his front squat pulled up, but his front squat, like, this, he's basically it looks like he's trying to play to his strength until playing to his strengths kind of screws him in the context of a squat, because he is making it, like, pretty hippy, pretty backy, until, like, because it's a high bar squat, he kind of runs out of leverage because he needs more forward knee travel to make that work. And I'm kind of guessing that a little bit of what's going on with this versus the front squat is the front squat kind of like almost forces him to sit into the legs better, whereas this, he's kind of like going spine hips, and then because it's a high bar, you can't really spine hip it all that much. It ends up just kind of biting him in the ass when it does come time to get into the bottom. So I think, like, what I'd be thinking about here is, number one, like, we already know we want to build legs up on him all around, both hams and quads. We're already doing that. And I think that what I might want to do with this high bar is, if he can, what I'd be thinking about Q-wise is almost thinking about trying to, like, use his glutes to not take the weight, but keep tension of the glutes to push him further into the knees. And I think that can be a way to kind of let us get a little bit more quad into it in the bottom. And that way he's going to be kind of more like bar on top of pelvis versus bar way in front of pelvis on a high bar, which is going to stool.
Yeah, it's going to screw over.
So I think it is going to be kind of like a little bit of intent and positioning, like knowing that he's a really good deadlifter, knowing that he's a really good strongman.
He would be a good deadlifter.
I'm not super worried about like a back squat being good. Obviously we want to make it better, but I think like with what we're trying to get out of this, I probably would want to see us getting into the quads a little bit harder and using the glutes to push him in. And I think that knowing that this does look like it is it's a heavy single. If we're running high bars, I might almost want to have them run more submaximal so that in the short term, at least, we can make sure that we're high barring well, pushing into the quads versus kind of going to where he's forced to load it to his strengths. Because again, like, for this being a PR, like, I don't think that making it quaddier would help him lift it better. Making it quaddier might make him miss it due to quads. So I think like in the context of this being like a heavy high bar, he handled it as well as he could have. But I think for future high bars or making this more effective as a training stimulus, I would want to get more legs into it.
Is his name really Freak?
I don't know. I haven't asked that yet.
Let us know.
Let us know.
I want to know.
Comment below.
Are your parents just really cool, or is this like a nickname? I really need to know.
I'm assuming nickname.
Yeah, but I don't know. You never know.
Okay, so we got Phil in here. Phil is pretty new as well, but he's posted a shit ton, so I'm actually like very familiar with what's going on already. Haven't seen this yet, but he's got 6 sets of 1 rep at 240. This is a 2 reps going to 230. Trying to figure out the tall neck cue. Not sure if we got any better at it, but I know the first deadlift that Phil posted.
Pop quiz, how much was 240 kilos?
529. But the first deadlift he posted, he was like really like retracted back. And as soon as the bar broke, you could see the arms getting way longer. And like he didn't have the slack out of himself. Like he had the slack out of the bar, but the slack had to come out of himself before the bar broke. So I'd say that this is 100% an improvement. And kind of what we're trying to think about with the tall neck cue, explaining that is, I'm thinking about trying to push the back of the neck up as far away from the hands as possible. And what that's going to do for us is it's basically going to, again, like let the rib cage, let everything else get higher because we're pushing through the floor. And I want that to lead to better tension both into the floor as well as up through the upper back before we actually start the deadlift. And I say that like looking at this is a improvement for sure.
I'm not mad about this at all. I think this is one of those situations where he just needs to get stronger within this technique.
And kind of what he's been complaining about a little bit is that like actually getting the slack out of him, like it feels awkward. It feels like it is less tension. And I think that that's going to be something that he just has to learn to figure out because like this wedge, this slack pull, we might be getting a little bit more like a little bit head craning up versus driven back on this set. But I'm pretty damn happy with this. Now, the only kind of thing that I want to harp on here a little bit, even though it isn't as bad as some of the others, like we did kind of get a little bit too far leaned back, especially on that second rep. So this might be another one where I want to just try to finish straight up and down versus too far back. But I don't think that's really, you know, a weak point here going away from anything as much as it is just him leaning back really hard at the top. But I just want to say, like, for what I've been focused on with this, like this is a freaking good job. And it's keep getting better at it because like that looks really, really, really solid. And I'm expecting that as he just gets more practice at it, he should feel better and better connected.
Good work.
Now we got Josh in here. Josh is another guy that is relatively new, so I haven't seen a ton of from him. But he did message me today saying he signed up for his first meet in 16 weeks. Nice. So stoked to see that.
Oh, yep. There's a lot. There's a okay.
Yep. It's still better than the first squat I saw from him.
Okay, yeah. I think we talked about this last week with another lifter, but getting to the point where his unrack is really locked in, like he's already in the position that through his like torso of when he wants to start a squat, and then it should just be 1 step, 2 step,
and like look at the
straight legs.
Like he just flinging left foot back, and like I really like where right foot goes, but then he has to bring left foot back forward.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bouncing.
And there's a lot of bouncing. So I think like the biggest thing I try to focus on is like with the unrack, there's not a lot of tightness before, and then he's just kind of shoving into it. So I just try to, you know, really try to just pull bar into himself, set brace, set everything hard, and then just 1 step, 2 step, maybe adjust.
Yeah.
And then get situated. But I mean, like, the reason I'm kind of saying that that's the focus point is knowing how he squats. It's a pretty squat other than like the little bit of tightness beforehand. And like, he's doing a good job of like, if you're watching his head, like he's getting it all collected before he goes.
Yeah.
But I know that like he's squatting 95 kilo here. Once he gets to the point where he's squatting, you know, 300 plus kilo.
Yeah.
This bounce will not be helping him.
Yeah. And honestly,
the head position, like the breathing up will not be helping him down the road. So these are the kind of habits where I want to nip in the butt early on and kind of learn to, when we're taking our air, instead of breathing up and shrugging, keeping everything pinned down hard and breathing into the diaphragm, breathing low, because if we're breathing up and shrugging, that means we're losing upper back tension as we're taking the breath, versus if we're keeping everything locked in, we can add the tension as we're breathing. So I think it's going to be a little bit of just like generally learning to get tighter. That will maybe not make a difference with these weights yet, because these weights, you know, it's not insanely heavy. It's nothing near backs for him. But I think that if we laid a better foundation of learning to get tighter sooner, like 5-10 years down the road, he's going to be able to be a much better squatter. Because I think the problem is that there are a lot of kids that, get away with the loosey-goosey upper back, loosey-goosey head position. And then when they get to the point where they're trying to squat,
big weight,
220 kilo, 250 kilo, 270 kilo, 300 kilo, then they hit a really freaking hard wall because they didn't learn that tightness brace foundation to let them then be able to enter bigger weights. Because like right now, he's getting away with it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be like, just because he is getting away with it.
Yeah. And like
stuck with it.
All I can think about right now is that when I was a beginner level lifter, I did this too. And like, I wish somebody told me to stop fidgeting because I was super fidgety.
Yes.
And I see it a lot with younger lifters where it's like, yes, you want to get tight, but like make the least amount of movements that you possibly can. So you're saving your energy and your tightness for what you need it for.
Yes, 100%. Again, like if we're moving under the bar, it means we're sacrificing tightness somewhere and we could be more locked in. So again, like the squat itself, freaking pretty. So stoked on this based on what we saw the other week. But
he was leaking energy.
Yeah, but like, we do have that little bit of tip forward in the last rep. And like at this stage, I'm not even worried about that. And I'd honestly think that if we can just learn to get tighter and just make sure we're training quads appropriately on accessories, make sure we're training torso appropriately, like that little bit of tip forward, it's probably going to go away on its own if we just keep doing the right thing. So not very worried at all.
Can I open this?
Yeah, go for it. Make some noise.
Oh yeah. This just dropped in Canada last week.
Orange Crest Zero. It is very, very delicious. Like it's almost surpassed root beer, my consumption. So.
Yeah, we were on our fourth case in like 2 weeks. So that's disgusting, but it's delicious. Anyways.
No, Austin's already posted this as well, so I've already seen it. And another one was a little bit of a dick in the main thread. But again, I'm being a little bit of a dick to give the hard answers that will let him be better in the future. And I think like context behind this is he was really sick for a while. Like he missed about a week out of the gym. And then his first session back into the gym, he did a near max SPD where he doubled 405. And this was, I think, like 5 days later, he tries to go 415 for a single. And like in the post, he was not stoked that 415 moved as bad as it did. But it's like, if you're out of the gym for a week and then you come back with a near max SPD day and like grind out 405 and have the 405 look like balls, expecting 405 or 415 to move well, like on the Wednesday after that Friday, like that's just an error in expectations.
Yeah. And
I was kind of talking about this in the main thread earlier with a different post, but I think that like we obviously want to have high expectations for ourselves, but unrealistic expectations are going to shoot us in the foot. And like, I think that the problem was that like he expected this day to feel good when like looking at it from the outside, it's so easy to be like, dude, it's not going to go well. We should do something else. And I don't think there's any like real fault in the squat. And I think that like knowing the context behind this, I'm actually really happy with how it held together.
I was just looking at that too, because I haven't actually seen this video before. And it just looks like he ran out of gas.
Yep. And it's energy, it's fatigue, it's him being underweight from being sick. And kind of what I said is that like, all we really need to do right now is, again, he hasn't been coming back that I know that he's probably a little bit nervous for, but I think that the biggest thing we need to do is just to make sure that everything's in the pocket for the next couple of weeks. Because if we keep kind of like trying to just take a near max over and over and over again, we're going to have a hard time building momentum. We're going to be, tossing fatigue on when we're still fatigued from the illness.
Yeah.
But if we kind of keep it in the pocket and let momentum build and make the only priority getting back in routine and getting back on the program, then he's going to have the chance to build momentum. And like knowing what we were worried about with his earlier squats he's posted, he was one of the guys that was also like really flinging the pelvis back hard and ending up overarched, avoiding his quads altogether. But this brace looks like it's still a little bit flaky, but so much better. And he's actually in his quads and he's not kicking out of them. So like from a like, why the hell did you have to do this, 5 days after making 405 ugly perspective? It's like, I wish he probably would have done something else on this day, or even just, taken, something in the low threes. But from this held together under the bar, I say that this holding together this well in the context, like it makes me excited knowing that he did this well given the circumstances.
And like one thing that Seth and I at least say sometimes when we're driving onto the gym and we've just had like a rough week or a travel week, or we're just getting over being sick or a holiday or something like that, we always talk about just taking what our body has that day. And it's just kind of like a way to manage expectations of, you know what, maybe the day is going to go really well and I'm going to be firing on all cylinders. But if, you know, I'm still recovering from being sick, it's okay. I'm just going to like, I'm not going to sandbag it, but at the same time, I'm just going to like keep it in the pocket and see what's there that day. And I think that's just one of those things that comes with maturing as a lifter in the last, I want to say like I've been powerlifting for over 12 years now, 13 years. I don't know how long it's been. I think it's one of those lessons that lasts like 3 or 4 years, especially. I've kind of really made.
And kind of what I'm learning to do in terms of expectations is instead of like expecting to hit a number, expecting this number to move well, or expecting this number to do this or whatever bullshit is, the only expectation I really have for myself nowadays is that I expect to do the absolute best that I can.
Yes.
And if my only goal is to do the absolute best that I can, then no matter what weight on the bar is, like I'm okay with where I end up at least. Like some days, I mean, I might not be thrilled where it ends up if I am really fatigued or under the weather, but if my only goal is to do the best that I can and train the most effectively that I can, then it's a lot easier to not run into days like this where it feels like shit, moves like shit, and then it's going to be harder to dig out of.
Yeah.
Because if my only goal is to do my best, sometimes the best thing that I can do for myself is to take it a little bit easier, like I did in the vlog that I posted this morning, because yesterday I had a day where I probably felt similar to this. And like when I realized that, my whole kind of outlook kind of changed. It's like, okay, my only goal is to do shit that's going to let me push appropriately.
Yeah.
And because I did that last night, I feel, you know, half decent today.
And like one thing I'd say too is like some people will have a single like this where it maybe doesn't move the way that they want it to. It doesn't mean that you're any less strong than you were 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago. You are just not showing strength in that certain day.
And he kind of went through that on his deadlift because he was doing a lot of like the pulling heavier oftener than he was able to recover from, and his deadlift went away for a little bit. But like you don't get weaker lifting weights.
Yes.
You just get more fatigued. If you are in a situation where you're lifting weights, you're training hard, you're getting weaker, all you really need to do is figure out where you need to pull back and it'll come back. And like he had like a couple frustrating deadlift sessions in a row where we were like, okay, dude, like all you got to do is pull back a little bit. And he ended up pulling a PR like pretty much the very next session. So
yeah,
this is kind of the same thing going on again, where it's like, yeah, pick it on him a little bit to, you know, kind of get his shit together. But again, because I know that if he gets his shit together and kind of learns to make better choices around what he's doing, then he's going to be so much better for it. Because like this looking as good as it is, again, it shows that he has so much potential.
Sometimes the hard thing is to not do the thing.
Yes. And we're looking at Isaac again here, and he's someone where I've harped on him a lot for being skinny, so I'm not going to do that too much. But
I love the SS dad.
Yes.
So good.
I wish he posted his squat or deadlift, because like if he posted his squat or pull, all I could do is just like gas him up for 10 minutes straight here. But because it's gotten so much better. But
yeah.
I think that's one of those things where like with bench, I think bench is the lift that is the most like affected by how much muscle you have. And
I want to see his hips and his feet. Is his butt coming off the bench towards the end?
A tiny little bit. He's saying it's squirmy.
What do you think about his foot positioning though? Like, I wonder.
He does compete somewhere where he has to keep heels down.
That's okay.
So I was just saying like he can't tuck. But yeah,
that's okay.
I do think that maybe we could go a little bit.
I'm thinking it's wider, yeah.
That might help him with managing the leg drive. But the point I was trying to make is that I think with how tall he is, how long he is, the biggest thing that we need to do for bench is he's already on this. Like he's filled out a bunch since he started here. But the biggest thing that we really need to do is just keep making pecs bigger, keep making triceps bigger, keep making delts bigger. And like, it's not going to be like the quick fix, but like 3 years down the road, it's going to be like he might have a pretty solid bench. Again, like seeing how lean he is and seeing the jackness starting to creep in, like he could be someone that looks like Joel down the road.
Yeah.
So
my only thought technique wise I was just like fixating on the lower body at first. I think it might be beneficial for him to just bring the pad to his t-shirt instead of letting it. That one was good. First rep was good.
Yes.
And then that one was also good. I think his third rep, he kind of sinks a little bit. So maybe just try to keep a little bit tighter on the last one. But I think that's just being nitpicky, honestly. Actually, yeah, I like that.
But if you're watching the third one.
Yeah, the third one is just a little
just
weird.
watch the forearm, watch the elbow.
Yeah.
We kind of had that little bit of like roll of the body, that little bit of dump that's then causing the sink. And I think that's probably reflective again of like, I've been hammering on about, we just need to make like Tate presses, rollings just strong as shit. Because usually if a guy's like rolling into the bottom of the bench, that's kind of like dumping more towards front delt versus the elbow taking the load and the tricep taking the load. So again, that's kind of reflective of like, we just got to keep on hammering triceps and keep on getting more jacked, keep on eating food, keep on working to fill up the size medium thrash shirt. He's the one that's commenting that on every YouTube video.
Amazing.
Eating cookies to fill it out. So
to be fair, this medium is a big medium.
It is a big medium.
Yeah.
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 But you're also a small girl. So
I'm a small girl. Yeah.
So we'll keep eating food, keep on getting more jacked. And again, like he's one of the guys that like every time he posts in here, I'm just like, yes, because like he's getting so much better. I wish he posted a squat and pull because it's like, it's
next time.
It's cool. So I'm saying permission to, yep. And we're looking at Corey now, who is another newer guy in here. So not super familiar with it, but
I haven't seen one of those belts in a long time.
Yeah.
Is that one of the fabric belts?
I think so. But there's a couple things going on here. And there's the one thing that he was asking about in the thread that I already know about, but I'll see what
was he asking? Sorry, I didn't see. What was he asking in the thread?
So if we're looking at hip and knee position, he's kind of having that same double knee bend.
Yeah, I saw that part.
I think that there's something else going on here after talking to him, because if we're kind of looking at it like on the spur strap where it's like the knees are needing to rebend, he still doesn't get all the way through at the hips. And I asked to see some videos of empty bar and kind of just seeing him move in general. And this is his end range hip extension. Like that's all the hip extension he's got.
Oh, wow.
So I don't think that this is like a problem of we need stronger hamstrings. I think this is just a problem of like, we straight up need more hip extension so we can like extend through to a better position and not
do that. So what do you think he needs to do that?
So what I'm having running so far, just so again, I like to kind of start as simple as possible because I don't want to give him 17 things just so we don't know what's working, don't know what is working. So the biggest thing that I gave him to start out with is, I don't want to lose where I am in here, so new tab, but going into the movement library. So this is the first thing that I gave him. It's a half knee active hip flexor, which is basically like a co-contraction hip glute exercise where we're squeezing glute while keeping abs on, so we're not dumping into lumbar, trying to then load into hip flexor stretch, use hip flexor to pull back and forth. So it's a little bit of hip flexor length, a little bit of hip flexor contraction to go along with the glute. But the goal of running that is to see like, okay, if we assume that it's hip flexor as kind of like the first thing, then we can see how that does and if it helps them get through better. If that doesn't do it, what I want to move on to is some sort of couch stretch variation where we're going to be tagging a little bit more rec fem to see if that's in the way. If it's the third thing I'd be kind of thinking is like, okay, maybe it is hamstring length that is kind of, stopping a little bit, but I want to think it's probably more front side stuff in the way first. So I'm very curious to see how that does pan out. And I think like other than that, on a technical side of things for the deadlift, every single rep, we've got that little bit of bar wants to kick out before it gets going, right? So what are you thinking for that?
I think it's mostly positioning, like making sure that what we talked about last week, try to make sure that we're pushing the shins into the bar and pulling the bar into the shins at the same time. Or what do you think?
I agree, but I wouldn't call that position. I call that like intent with position.
Positioning. Okay.
And like creating the position versus just going to the position.
Yeah.
And again, like if we're kind of like looking close at his upper back.
Yeah, he's not actually pulling it into him.
Yeah, he's not really pulling it into him. He's not really pulling himself into the bar. So what I'd be thinking here is like, we can kind of see like Terry's is flexing pretty hard, but like it doesn't look like his lat is doing a ton. So I'm really trying to like find feel there of like pulling everything down into him, not back. We're trying to be long and just pull in towards him.
Yeah.
And my number one thing to teach this is like there are a lot of people that like to run like forward banded out, so the bar band pulling the bar forward, and then they have to pull it in. I think the problem with that, especially if lockout looks like this, is that forward pulling band can
It's going to keep leaning back.
It's going to teach you to keep leaning back. So I don't want to do that here. But what I would want to do is a straight arm pull down, where we can even do a straight arm pull down like bent over on a low cable, where we're protracting and then sucking through, protracting, sucking through, and like not trying to pull steps back, but trying to pull ourselves, pull the bar in, pull us towards bar. Because like a little bit more lat to kind of drive the bottom of the rib cage forward is going to help drive the bottom of the rib cage forward, but it's also going to help keep that bar situated so he's not having that tip rock coming out of the bottom.
Yes.
Now, last one, Sebastian, another new guy in here, and usually when new people in here do this, I give them a little bit of shit because it makes it tougher for everyone to watch. Because like what I like to have happen is have people upload to YouTube unlisted if they don't want it to be seen by the world. Because if they upload it unlisted, they can then post it in here and we can directly watch. But if they do this and directly upload, then
we should download it.
You got to download it, which it's not that much of a pain in the ass, but it's enough of a pain in the ass that it makes it easier. Easier for everyone, especially on mobile, if we just have it.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people are using their app. How do we get it over?
Bringing it over. Well, he's in my Instagram DMs not long ago, so stoked that he's here.
Is that an ELITEFTS t-shirt too? I can't see.
It might be.
Another old one. Oh, okay. Restart it.
Yes, restart.
We still kind of got that like forward head posture, like walk out that we saw on some other lifters today.
Yeah, so when you're squatting, you don't want to look like me, like straining to see the monitor. We want to be packed. We want to be upright. And we want to have everything above the bar locked in and pulled back, because if everything above the bar is there, we're going to have more tension to keep everything below the bar better situated. So I think like that's going to be one big tactical thing that I would want to improve on. He does kind of like jerk into it and improve it. But I think like my actual main priority might be
knees, hips.
The knees and the hips are both a little bit soft. And he kind of does, again, like he bounces into it so we know that he can get there. But what I want him to do is probably just a focus point that'll give him a better base is if he really tries to flex his quads super, super, super hard right now. And it's like, I don't know where the pause button is in this stupid video player. I got a new video player so I could like use a more advanced codec in my camera to work, and I don't know how to work the thing, so I apologize for that. But I can't even pause the video and get it.
Yeah, it's right here.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't. Oh, there we go. But like in this position right here, I wouldn't even be thinking about the hips, because I think like having some pre-hinge is okay.
Yeah.
But I think if he just flexed his quads really hard, got his knees locked, and then from that position with that quad tension, just kind of like squeezed his glutes without trying to change position, that would just lock his lower body in.
Yeah.
So he could create a better brace on top of the lower body and then load into better tension.
I would kind of want to see what his hand and bar positioning looks like.
Yeah, because it might be, again, like seeing like the wanting to be rounded over, it almost makes me wonder sometimes if he's lacking shelf, or maybe the bar might be too low.
This is what I'm thinking is like, there are some parts of his setup that look like a high bar setup and some parts that look like a low bar setup. So I'm trying to figure out
what's going on. I
exactly
think the bar
what's
is
happening.
pretty low. It's decently low.
Okay.
But again, I think the big thing is like I want to just try to sort out foundation as the first step. I think like just like flexing the quads hard, keeping more tension in the glutes, seeing how everything up top plays off of that. I think that should turn into at least a better base, and we kind of like better decide what needs to be sorted out up here. Because I definitely do agree that there's stuff that needs to be sorted out up there, but I want to sort out down here first, because I think if we sort out up here without sorting out down here, this might just get more exposed.
Yeah.
But if we make just like where he kind of bounced in, like having that quad tension to then get braced off of, I think that's going to turn into this maybe looking better on its own. But
yes,
again, like it's gonna be a little bit of layers here because there is some weird stuff.
Yeah.
But the good news is that like it looks like it is like more of a like just knowing again how to create tension, how to create position, because there isn't a ton of like breakdown beyond what is already weird on set.
Yes.
Like if we ignore like the head, if we ignore the soft knees, there's not a lot of weird shit happening. So, which makes me very, very, very hopeful that if we can sort out the soft knees, sort out the head, that it should just get better without having to think anything
we love
complicated.
easy fixes.
Yes. And like if we're thinking about it, like how difficult it's going to be to fix something, I think that I'd probably rather be like have this kind of problem than a straight up strength deficit, because a straight up strength deficit can take a lot of time. And even though like changing positioning can be a pain in the ass, I think like the positioning is more of like a, hey, shit, this is working better versus like a, why is it taking so long for my quads to come up?
Yeah.
But
at the same time, it doesn't take that long for your quads to come up or something like that. Like it's like longer, but it's also not like it's going to be years.
It's not the like immediate satisfying feedback.
Yes. Yeah. It's like when you're a new lifter and like someone coaches you for the first time and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just put on the 100 pounds and my squat's sick.
Yeah. So anyways, that is what we've got for this Friday's edition of Form Check Friday. I put at the top of this thread that I wanted to limit this to 10 videos just so we didn't record too long. We're at like 45 minutes so far. So decent timing.
Yeah,
and
not too bad.
On that note, thank you guys so much for watching. Potentially see you guys again next week if we get enough views and likes. Next week, I'm going down to Vegas for Cole's bodybuilding show. So if we get a ton of views and a ton of likes, I might just force one out, but I'd probably prefer to not force one out, especially if I'm babysitting like a frantic and malnourished Cole.
Yeah.
Not really looking forward to that trip.
Full-time job. Yeah, we are.
Well, I don't know. You're saying that because you're not going.
I know, I'm not going. Oh, boo-hoo, you have to go to Vegas.
But last thing to say is new shirts now live. Dress shirts gone forever. You can no longer get one. So if you want to get the new shirt, make sure to get the new shirt before February 28th when they are gone.
Yeah. R.I.P. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye. I think that was okay.
Yeah, I think that was... Okay. I can't see myself right now, just so you know, at all.
Okay, so you come back a little bit. Move in a little bit. I think we're kind of square. Don't lean in.
Well, I was just trying to see what I look like.
Well, don't look at yourself. And then we look like at the microphone.
Okay, and then what?
Just look concerned. I don't know. Maybe that'll work. We'll do a better concerned face. Straight up and down, straight up and down. Match my posture. Yeah, that's a thumbnail.